The center back, Jacob Glesnes, is going for it. Oh, what a goal! What a goal!
And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And yeah, Dave, I wish the Union would have came back last night against the Vancouver Whitecaps. You know, at least they got a goal to get a point out of this match, but it still feels like a loss, even though we got a point. Credit to Montreal because they came in there with a game plan. They came in there to sit deep, to try to nick a goal, and if they could, they would go and park the bus. And for majority of the game, I thought Vancouver was going to walk out of Subaru Park with all 3 points. Credit to Quinn Sullivan for having the only shot on target in the game to secure a point for the Union. But overall, just a super disappointing night. And we're not going to get into MLS news. We're going to start with Blunder of the Week first. But before I get into that, I do want to say it was awesome. A quick shout out to Rich Laurie, meeting him and his wife in person. I know I met Billy Myers a couple games ago. I didn't mention it. But it's awesome to meet people that listen to the podcast or people that I've had onto the podcast, and whether or not we've talked the Union, whether it's they participate in the trivia game, to put a face, a voice to the person behind the keyboard that you're interacting with, finding people that listen to the podcast, interacting with them. Yeah, it's the coolest thing in the world. And so I always appreciate getting feedback from people, always like meeting people that listen to the show. Because, look, nobody has to listen to this podcast, and for whatever reason, people find it enjoyable, I guess. People want to listen, and so anytime that I can meet you guys at the game, it's cool. And I really appreciate people taking the time out of their day listening to the podcast and then saying, hey, you're going to be at blah, blah, blah game. Come to blah, blah, blah section. And I'm like, okay, let's go do it. So, yeah, I mean, shout out to Rich and his wife and Billy meeting those guys at a game, and it's just always great interacting with other Union fans. And we're all at the stadium. We're all supporting this team for one reason. It's because we love the Philadelphia Union. So I want to throw that out there real quick. But if you guys remember last episode, I talked about a blunder of the week that is pretty serious, and I'm not even going to play the sound effect because this is a serious matter, and I feel like playing the sound effect would definitely take away from the moment. But you guys know, blunder of the week's supposed to be a ha-ha-ha funny moment. I mean, a blunder in soccer is a funny moment. But this situation that happened last Saturday, August 14th, where 3 Vancouver Whitecaps Academy players were assaulted at an outside gathering in what is believed to be a racially motivated attack. One player is in the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries and is expected to make a full recovery following surgery. There was no way that I was not giving this blunder of the week. I mean, this could take blunder of the week for the whole year. It's bad enough that people are racist in general, that people are racist to first-team players, but to be racist towards young kids, academy kids, where you attack somebody so bad that you're sending them to the hospital where they had to get surgery, that's sickening. Like, I don't know what goes through people's minds. I don't know what the mindset is to you wake up one day and say, yeah, I'm going to be racist. I mean, you see it all the time on social media. People saying homophobic things, being racist to players on social media, just being racist towards other people. You go to soccer games and you hear things, and for somebody to wake up and attack somebody because of race and send them to the hospital, person that's not even a adult, that is sick. It is so sick. I honestly cannot wrap my head around that, why anybody would be racist. I I can't even say, you wouldn't say that in person because clearly this person did something in person that was racially motivated. So it's not like they're behind a keyboard sitting, not showing their name. They didn't care about any of that. They they showed their face, they showed their name, and they attacked the players because of race. And now, what I read to you guys is the press release from the Vancouver Whitecaps, and that is all that I've seen mentioned about this situation. But the only thing, literally the only thing that is a positive is that the player that got sent to the hospital suffered non-life-threatening injuries and is going to make a full recovery. That's the only good thing about the situation. So I'm just like, people, man. People quickly take away the enjoyment of supporting soccer, going to soccer games, when they act like complete idiots. It makes you ashamed to support a team that somebody else supposedly supports, and they don't know how to act in public. It's not a good look, but I guess to some people, they don't care. And it's really, really sad that that's how it is for some people. It is sad. And I really don't want this whole episode to be a sad episode. That's why I didn't want to talk about this at the end and add to an already sad episode that I think it's going to be. And maybe the whole episode's going to be sad. Maybe it didn't matter if I put Blunder of the Week first or last. But I'll try to find some positivity for the game against Montreal, which I won't lie, it was pretty hard. But I will try my best to try to find the positivity in that game. But I decided not to take any listener questions this week just because I wanted to get to the Blunder of the Week, and there was not really any MLS news to talk about. So we'll just get straight into talking about the Philadelphia Union versus the Montreal Impact game, which we all know ended 1-1. But like I said earlier, just a completely frustrating night all around. Thank goodness we were able to get a point out of the game. But it does feel like a loss. I mean, there's so many things that are frustrating about that game. And I think my number one complaint is, why wasn't this team ready? And that came straight from Jim Curtin's mouth in the post-game press conference. That's on him for not having this team, his words, ready to go. And if you look at it, the last 8 days, Montreal had 3 games, while the Union had 2 games. Both teams rotated 3 players from their previous starting lineup. But my question is, why weren't the Union sharp in finishing their chances? I'm not sure how the Union didn't score at least one of their 8 shots. Santos has a free header in the 15th minute. He also has a chance with his right foot that he misses just wide. He had a slow pass to Corey Burke when they tried to hit him on the counterattack in the 17th minute. Well done to Sergio to hold the guy up. I mean, to push a guy off when the guy's like grabbing on his shirt and everything. Sergio is able to break free from that and just outrun the whole defense and didn't really have an angle to shoot. The only thing he had was Corey Burke. And I guess Sergio couldn't get that pass off as crisp as he wanted because he ran so far, he used all his energy. So the pass wasn't that composed, I guess, because he was tired. But then Corey Burke, he misses a chance when he tries shooting with his left foot, try to go for an upper 90 shot. It was a good link-up play with Gazdag to get the chance created in the first place. But just one of those 4 chances that I just mentioned, one of those should have been in the back of the net in the first half. And what happens because the Union don't finish one of those chances? They concede a goal right before halftime. And if the most frustrating thing for you isn't the Union finishing one of those 8 chances in the first half, then it's definitely got to be that we conceded a goal right before halftime, because that is the worst possible time to give up a goal or right at the break when that changes everything for the coach. Where their whole team talk, the whole tactics, everything goes out the window that they were talking about on the sideline, waiting for the whistle to be blown for halftime. It all goes out the window. Now you've got to decide, okay, look, Montreal's going to sit back. They're going to park the bus. They're not going to come at us anymore. They got their goal. They came here, got what they wanted. They got the one goal. They're going to sit back. And because the Union gave up that goal, this is exactly what Montreal did in the second half. They came out, they sat in a low block, and they weren't going to let the Union attack through the middle anymore. And the goal starts with Wanyama winning a header against Brujo. The ball falls to Janssen, which forces Jack Elliott to come out of position to step to him, which is fine. I had no problem with that. Janssen holds the ball up for Brokier, who runs right in between Brujo and Flock to collect the ball and attack for it. Wagner gets caught ball watching, which means Torres is able to run behind him. Mihailovic plays the ball to Torres. Wagner does a good job to catch up and take away the angle, forcing Torres to cut the ball and take it outside of the penalty area. And then that moment that Torres takes the ball out of the penalty area, Kai Wagner and Brujo give him too much space to cross the ball in, and Mihailovic is right there to put the ball in the back of the net for Montreal. And when the ball gets played to Torres, and Kai Wagner does a good job, like I said, he does a good job to recover. He sends him out wide. But when Mihailovic runs into the box, that should have been Jamiro Montero's guy from the beginning. Jamiro Montero runs towards the ball when it's towards Torres. You have 4 Union players going towards Torres, which means that now Montreal is about to have 3 runners inside of the box. And Glesnes has a quick look over to Mihailovic, sees that he's coming into the box, and then as soon as Torres plays that ball into the box, Glesnes is just way too slow to react to the ball. And we've seen this so many times this season. I can think 4 or 5 times this season between Glesnes and Bizo. Teams play that ball right between both of those guys. Neither one of them react, and there's a goal for the opposition. Now, if this was a one-time, two-time thing, okay, I could understand that, but it's not. It's happened multiple times. And, if we notice that, you know that they notice it on the team. You know that they notice this on film. You would think that they would have this corrected, but yet here again, the Union concede to a goal that they've conceded 4 or 5 times already this season. Now, credit for the Union, right? They played well defensively. The last couple games, they played well defensively the first 15 minutes of the game. But the one thing that they're not correcting is that ball between Glesnes and Bizo. It's not a good look. It's not a good look at all, where teams know. Teams absolutely know, because that's why they keep playing the ball into that area, because the Union keep conceding. So not a great moment there for the Union. And that goal is definitely not on one player. Jamiro had something to do with it. Flock, Brujo both had something to do with it when they didn't get the ball out in the midfield to begin with. Wagner gets caught ball watching, but then he does a good job to recover, take away the angle for Torres. And then Bizo and Glesnes, like I just said. So, I mean, there's multiple people on that team that are the reason why that goal happened, that, in my opinion, should have never have happened in the first place. But look, overall, the Union, they choked in the penalty area. Too many touches when they should have shot the ball. They were panicking when they got close to goal, just like we saw against New York City at times, just like we've seen them do it against Chicago. For whatever reason, the Union, when they're right in the penalty area, nobody wants to shoot the ball. Just shoot. You don't know what's going to happen. Shoot the ball from distance. And the Union just simply aren't shooting the ball from outside the box as much as they did last season, where this year they only have 3 goals from outside the box, where last year I believe they led all MLS teams with goals outside of the box. So why aren't they doing it this year? Why not have a shot from distance? You never know what's going to happen. Okay, if you hit the ball a million miles in the sky, okay, who cares? At least you got a shot off. But the Union are, for whatever reason, just not taking their chances. And look, you compare the first half to the second half, where they had all this aggression. And it completely disappeared in the second half until Quinn Sullivan came on. He was the only one that wasn't afraid to shoot from outside the box. And look, he shoots from outside the box and he scores. It was a good goal. A really, really good goal. Goalie didn't react to it at all. He had 4 people looking at him. One player tries to slide and block the shot, and the goalkeeper doesn't react at all. Great shot by Quinn Sullivan. Like I said in the intro, our only shot on target was a goal. And I do feel bad for Quinn because both goals that he scored this season, the Union were losing. So he's really never had a time to properly celebrate those goals. But look, speaking of Quinn Sullivan, people on social media, they're saying, oh, Quinn should start now over Gazdag at the 10. But here's the thing. Quinn Sullivan isn't a 10. He's a winger. That's what he came up as through the academy, as a winger. You see it all the time when Quinn comes on. His natural thought is to cut inside, just like a winger. Not stay central, which typically number 10s do. And honestly, it's starting to get tiring trying to defend Gazdag on Twitter, on the podcast. The only way, I don't know how much more things I can bring up to try to change people's mind. And I don't know, maybe I have changed some people's mind that are listening to the podcast. But I feel like we're seeing a lot more people on social media bash on Daniel Gazdag than we have people supporting him. Because the only way that Gazdag's going to gel with his teammates is by actually playing games. Playing games and training are 2 completely separate things. How's he ever going to get, quote-unquote, better if he's not playing games? When you're training, you're trying to find work to find details. You're not having the noise of fans, opposition booing you. You're not playing against opposition. You're playing against your own teammates in practice. Practice will never replicate what happens in a game. And so, yeah, it's great that he's training with his teammates. But what good does that do if he's not playing games with his teammates against other opposition? He's not going to get better that way by just sitting on the bench. He loves trying to link up with teammates and do those 1-2 passes, but his teammates aren't on the same page as him. And maybe it's coming off in training. Maybe it is. But again, training and playing games are 2 different things. We've got to find a way to get him on the ball more than what we have, because 33 touches last night is terrible. And that's not on him, in my opinion. He makes the runs and his teammates don't see him. We've seen multiple runs by Sergio Santos in the past, Jamiro Montero in the past, Ali Bedoya in the past, and nobody passes them the ball. When it looks like they're on, it looks like they have space ahead of them. And I get it sometimes when they're making them runs, when it looks like they should pass on the ball, they're taking away a player, opening up space in the midfield. That's what they're trying to do with some of those outside runs. So I get why they don't pass it every single time that it looks like, okay, that player is one-on-one with a defender. But 33 touches is awful. And Gazdag, he doesn't want to come deep to collect the ball. He wants to stay in the attacking third, which is fine. And I'm not sure if that's Jim telling him, hey, look, don't come deep to collect the ball. Stay in the attacking third. That's where we want you to get the ball. I'm sure it is a little bit of that. And then I'm sure some of that's how he wants to play. He doesn't want to come back deep to collect the ball and start the attack in the number 6 position. He wants to be forward. Have Brujo, Flock, Bedoya, Montero playing him the ball so he can link up with the forwards. Because look, the difference between Jamiro and Gazdag playing the 10 is Jamiro is a drifter. He likes the free roam. That's why I think it's important to have both Jamiro and Gazdag out there at the same time. As Jamiro drifts, it'll open up space where theoretically Gazdag should be able to create chances for the forwards. Now, does it always happen that way? No, but look, last night was the first time that we've seen Liam Flock, Jamiro Montero, Gazdag, and Brujo all on the field at the same time. I've been wanting Jamiro Montero on the right side of the diamond for the longest time, and I believe that was his first time ever for the Union playing on the right side of the diamond. Normally he plays on the left side, and so I get it. The defensive cues when to press. The chemistry with him and Beiser is probably not there like it is for him and Kai on the left side of the field. But the 33 touches, it's not on Daniel Gazdag. Quinn Sullivan shouldn't be playing as a 10. If you want to try to play him as a forward, fine. If you want to play him at one of the 8s, that's fine too. The only thing I will say is I do think Quinn Sullivan should come on a lot sooner than when Jim normally brings him on the field, which then brings up the whole point where everybody's talking about Jim's sub choices. And, I do agree with people because Bedoya for Burke, I don't know what that was about. When I thought it was going to be Bedoya for Gazdag, and you put Jamiro at the 10 and Bedoya on the right side of the diamond, but he puts Gazdag up top with Sergio, which, okay, we've seen Daniel Gazdag play as a striker a couple times this season. But Bedoya is your first option off the bench when you need a goal. I don't get that. You bring on Jack McGlynn for Leon Flock. Okay, that I'm fine with that. Again, I probably would have liked to have seen Quinn Sullivan on before Jack McGlynn, as I feel like Quinn Sullivan's a more offensive player than Jack McGlynn is. Now you bring on Jack McGlynn because his passing abilities better than Leon Flock. I don't think that's a hot take. Maybe it is for some people. But Leon Flock, I feel like, doesn't have the passing range that Jack McGlynn has. Leon Flock can pass, but I don't think he can play those long balls to the forwards. I don't think he can play the ball over the top for the strikers to get to, which is what the Union had to do in the second half because they really weren't getting anything out wide when they were crossing. They really couldn't attack just through the middle, combine 1-2s. They just had to hit the ball over the top, which they didn't do a ton of, but I guess that's why you bring in Jack McGlynn for Leon Flock and then Quinn Sullivan for Beiser. When you make that substitution, it's like, okay, yeah, we're going all out attack right here. We're playing 3 in the back. But Jim Curtin was asked about his sub choices, and this is what he had to say.
With the subs, we're playing our second game in a short time period. So was Montreal. That was their third game. So I thought we actually should have had a fitness edge, more of one than maybe we showed tonight. But yeah, the changes were to try to give us a little more life, to give us some quality. Obviously, Ali always wants to start. And again, that was one of the harder decisions. Try to manage his minutes just because he ran and covered so much ground in the last game. Maybe I got that one wrong. Maybe I should have rolled him out there again. But these are the things you second guess after you don't win. So, look, Quinn came into the game, made a big impact, gave us life. I thought Jack McGlynn came in and did a decent job still playing forward. So the guys that came off the bench helped us. We used 4 subs. Each one was kind of different tactically. Towards the end, we take Olivier off and we put Ali kind of tilted as almost like a wing back, and we almost have 3 in the back. So, yeah, a lot of different things went into the game. But, I don't want to be chasing games. That's not what I want to be doing, especially at home. So we prefer to have things stable, not have to make a ton of changes and keep things organized and be looking to make subs that lead to a second goal for us rather than trying to chase a game.
Now, I'm glad we kind of got an answer, and maybe I'm totally misinterpreting what Jim said, but basically to me, look, if you guys remember on social media on Friday, Jim Curtin said that Davo was going to be involved one way or another in the game Saturday night. Now, I guess Jim meant that, yeah, he's going to be included on the bench. He's not going to play any minutes, but I think if the Union were tied 1-1, if the Union were up 1-0, something like that, then I think he would have brought in Davo. But to me, he's saying that, no, I don't think Davo should have been brought on when we were down a goal. But isn't that why you bring in a striker to score your goal, to get your goal when you need a goal? I mean, he's right when he says that he wants to have things be stable, where majority of the game, the Union were playing chase. But just going back to the Bedoya for Burke substitution, wouldn't you change like for like where you have two strikers on the bench in Casper and, like I said, Davo. Okay, you don't want to bring Davo in because you want him on the field when we're not behind chasing a goal. Okay, but that's fine. Bring in Casper for Burke. That's a pretty like-for-like substitution, in my opinion. But I don't know. I don't get it. I think Jim is lucky that Quinn Sullivan scored a goal to help his sub choices. But like you said too, like at the beginning of that clip, maybe he should have started Ali Bedoya. He's clearly second guessing itself. And it's natural for a coach, for fans to think that after a game, but more so a coach when they're the ones making the chances, where we're just in the stands like, oh, this is what I would have done. But Jim, for whatever reason, is reading the game the way that he reads it. And he's lucky. He's lucky that Quinn Sullivan got a goal. I think he did the right thing. I will say that. I think he did the right thing by giving Ali Bedoya the night off. Well, starting off. I think it was the right decision to sit Casper as well. Because these guys have played in so many games this season. I'm sure they're tired. They're playing more games than they did last season, where a lot of teams are struggling with that, where teams played 23 games, depending if they made the playoffs or not, 24 games, 25 games, where the Philadelphia Union, they're at 25, 26 games, I think, already, and we're not even close to being done our schedule yet, and we're still in CCL. So it's going to be close to 40 games played for the Philadelphia Union this season for some players. And so I have no problem sitting Ali Bedoya, sitting Casper at the start of the game. And you just hope that we have a lead where you bring these guys on, they can close games out, or they can go on and add some more goals to make sure that this game's really out of reach. So just really, really confusing why Bedoya came on for Burke, and for the reasoning why Jim did the sub choices the way that he did it. I'm hoping Daniel Gazdag does start at the 10 again against DC. I'm hoping that Davo actually gets to come in against DC, because I want to see how this guy plays. Like, I think the two strikers should be Sergio and Davo should be a like-for-like switch, and Corey Burke and Casper Shabelko should be a like-for-like switch. I mean, I guess it would be cool to see two pacey strikers out on the field and Sergio and Davo. I wouldn't mind seeing that at one point, but I think going for it, majority of the time, it should be Casper and Corey, and then Davo and Sergio Santos. That's what I would do. Maybe I have it completely wrong. Maybe Jim doesn't see it that way at all, but we're all going to have different opinions, but it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, there's only one coach for the Philadelphia Union, and that is Jim Curtin. But the last thing I want to bring up about this game is people were talking about the lack of press that the Philadelphia Union have had this season. And, for a little bit, I did believe people. I did believe people until I went ahead and looked up stats comparing the 2020 versus the 2021 pressing numbers. And so this is from 21 MLS games last season to the 21 MLS games that we played this season. So in 2020, we had, in 21 games, 3,581 presses, where this year we had 3,535 pressures. That's pretty close. And the percentage for that is 29.6% successful pressures in 2020 and 29.8% successful pressures in 2021. That's pretty darn close, where people are like, oh, we're not pressing as much as we did last season. You go ahead and see where the Union are pressing in the field, where in 2020 they pressured 820 times in the attacking third, where you compare it this year, they're pressing a little bit more in the attacking third with 854 pressures in the attacking third. And in the midfield, they have 1,585 pressures in 2020 compared to 1,555 this season in the midfield. So they're pressing a little bit more in the attacking third and a little bit less in the midfield than what they were doing last season. But all in all, I mean, these numbers are really, really close. I mean, you're looking at 20 plus. You're not looking at any numbers 100 plus. You're not looking at anything 200, 300, 400 plus. You're looking at things that are no more than 30 pressures. So I don't think the Union are doing anything different. The stats show that. And I was curious too to see, okay, look, who were some of our big pressure guys last season in 2020? Obviously, Jameer Monteiro was one of those. Brendan Aronson led the Philadelphia Union last season in pressures, and I'll go over that in a second. But I was like, yeah, let me get a striker that played pretty much all season, so I got Casper's numbers as well. But you look at Jameer's pressures last season in 17 games, comparing to 17 games that he played this season. In 17 games last season in 2020, he had 342 pressures, where in 17 games this season, he had 380. So he's pressing a little bit more this season, where last season he completed 20% of his pressures, where this season in 17 games he's completing 25.5% of his pressures. And I go ahead and look at Kasper Schmelker. Okay, is he doing anything different than what he did last season? Yeah, he's doing a whole lot different this season. So last season, when he had COVID, when he was battling COVID, not scoring a lot of goals, we gave him the benefit of the doubt, right? He had 222 pressures last season, where this season, in 21 games, he had 182 pressures. He's pressing less this season than he did last season, where last season he had 10.5 successful pressures compared to this season. His number is a lot higher when he's pressing the ball. He's getting the ball back for his teammates. He has 29.5. And so I think he's not pressing as much because Sergio Santos is playing more and more games this season. He's going longer and longer. So I think that's part of the reason why he's not pressing as much. And then for Jameer, well, you really got to look up Brendan Aronson's stats last season, where last season Brendan had 579 pressures, which was good for a 27.5% successful rate. Now, why is Jameer pressing more this season compared to last season? And I think it's simply because Brendan Aronson's not here. And if you go ahead and look, the only player this season in 2021 that is close to where Brendan was in 21 games last season is Leon Flock, who has 483 pressures this season, which is good for 32.5%. Where, like I said, Brendan Aronson, he had 579 pressures in 21 games played last season for the Union. So is there really a big difference for this team pressing-wise? I mean, yeah, it looks like it on the field, but if you look at the numbers, you look at the stats, it's pretty much identical. But I think the big thing for the Philadelphia Union, there's two things. One, it's not having Brendan Aronson. Brendan Aronson didn't score a lot of goals, didn't get a ton of assists last season either. And fans are like, but look what he's doing with Salzburg. He's scoring goals and he's getting assists. He's scoring goals in the Champions League. He's scoring goals for the U.S. men's national team. Why couldn't he do it with the Union? I think last season with the Union, Brendan Aronson had so much responsibility defensively, and it shows with 579 pressures. This guy was so active. He was everywhere on the field. Now, you look at Leon Flock. Yeah, he's trying to do his best to replace what Brendan Aronson did last season. But still, he's not close to what Brendan was doing last season. And Jameer's stats, they're close, but he had to press a little bit more so far this season because Brendan's not there. And I think number two with what's the issue is teams have figured out how to beat the press. You know, more and more teams have pressed in the league, which means, okay, more and more teams are used to coming up against the pressure. And so teams are learning out, okay, this is how we pass out of the Union's pressure. Maybe the players are taking the wrong angles. I don't have that kind of analytical stats where I can't see their movement. I think only the team have those kind of stats. It would be interesting to see the players' movement, but those are my guesses why the press looks so different this season compared to last season, where the numbers clearly show that there's not much of a difference. But I think, one, teams have figured out how to break out of the press, And 2, not having Brendan Aronson here, where he did so much defensively for you, is a big reason why the Philadelphia Union look like they're not pressing at times. I mean, they're definitely clearly pressing, but teams aren't falling for it as much as they did last season. But just look, overall, Chris Penso, he was terrible on the night, but you can't blame the ref every single game. Moral of the story is finish your chances. And you don't have this problem where you're playing from behind. If you're not playing from behind, you're not going to regret not finishing your chances. Because it's been this way the last couple of years for the Philadelphia Union, where they struggle to break down teams that sit deep. And I thought that's exactly why you bring in a number 10 like Gazdag. You keep Montero, where these guys have the passing ability to split those tight defenses, but the Union continue to struggle to break down those teams. Now, the one thing I will say is that it's not just a Union issue where they struggle to break teams down. It's a soccer issue altogether, where some of the world's best teams can break down low block teams that sit super duper deep from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. So I guess to our credit, we shouldn't get mad that, it's only the Union that can break out of this. It's teams all over the world, and that's why teams sit deep. But look, we go again on Saturday down in D.C., where we've had great success the last couple of years down in D.C. Hopefully we have more of the same. Hopefully this week I can get on Dave Johnson once again, talk about that game. Always a blast having Dave Johnson on the podcast. I love Dave Johnson. And hopefully you guys have liked hearing Dave Johnson the last 2 episodes that he's been on this podcast. He's an MLS original, an OG. And so this guy's seen a lot throughout MLS. He has a lot of great insight. And like I said, just hopefully we can get Dave Johnson onto the podcast. I don't know if their stats helped you guys at all. I don't know if I confused you at all. If I did confuse you, you can go ahead on Twitter and look up the nice graphic chart that my sister put together. So thank you, Shelby, for that. I suck at Excel, so she did a wonderful job putting the graphs together. I gave her the stats. She's like, okay, here's your charts. So I really, really appreciate that, Shelby. Get yourself a Shelby in your life if you don't have one already. It's great work that she does when I need her help with the podcast. So always appreciate my sister's help. But if you guys, like I said, if you're not following on Twitter, maybe you're not following it on Instagram or Facebook, follow @FreeKickPod. It's the same on all 3 social media platforms. Wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick. Check out the website, thefreekickpodcast.com. And look, still a lot of games to be played. And disappointing to only get, 8 points out of 15? Out of 15 possible points? Yeah, it's disappointing. It's disappointing when I say we needed 11, and that clearly didn't happen. But it's not the end of the world. The good thing is other teams are struggling. New England continuing to win, so I don't think anybody in the East are going to catch New England. But as long as the Union get a spot between 1 through 3, I'm happy. Because how many times have we seen a team that finished number 1 that won the Supporters' Shield win MLS Cup? I don't think it's happened that much. So, look, maybe it's a blessing in disguise if we don't finish first again in the East, if we don't win the Supporters' Shield. But we've got to find ways to score first and not come from behind, because Jim Curtin says it all the time, and we all clearly know it, that the Union can't play from behind. So let's hope that they can get all 3 points against DC. Like I said, hopefully get Dave Johnson on here and discuss that DC United game. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.